Hello and welcome back to another video for Final Fantasy XIV with me, Meoni. This video in particular is to challenge the idea of quantity versus quality and a little discussion on what we have so far in Shadowbringers and what we have to look forward to in the future. So to note, 5.1, the patch that everyone is waiting for, is probably going to be released around the 29th of October. There is no official date for that, which will be confirmed on Friday, this Friday, when we have the live letter, when they will give that date out. But really I want to talk about the lull of content that many of us describe for our YouTube videos that I've seen, including myself, and really talk about why that is. Is it the fact that there is a large amount of content on offer available to people each patch cycle, but we're just rushing through it because there's more of it to try and cover? Or is it the fact that those individual things themselves are much shorter? Now, if we were to describe Stormblood in terms of a patch cycle, I think the best example to give of content that was sort of adding to that argument of quantity versus quality would be the Hildebrand storyline. Hildebrand is a great example to use because a lot of people either sit on the fence of hating it or loving it, and some people in between. But for the most part, the people on the hating it side usually don't like Hildebrand because they believe that it takes development time out of other elements of the game. Now, whilst that's fair to say, but not completely, I don't 100% believe that myself, obviously, but I do find there is some merit to that, especially when the patches throughout Stormblood introduced Hildebrand, but usually there were like 1 or 2 quests in total. The dialogue was fairly, sort of stretched out a little bit, and it didn't really seem to go anywhere until towards the end of Stormblood itself, when we finally got that penultimate storyline conclusion with the Yojimbo trial, which was in particular one of the better trials that we've seen in Hildebrand in the game. It wasn't particularly difficult, that wasn't something that people wanted anyway. It was just a bit of fun, a bit of camaraderie, and another trial with some exciting rewards. It was quite fun, and the quests overall did come to a really nice end, but the process of getting there was a little bit drawn out, a little bit worn feeling as well. It was kind of like, was this really necessary? And I feel that we could really approach a lot of the different pieces of content throughout the patch cycle of Stormblood, and indeed, possibly in Shadowbringers. Are we actually going to learn, or are Square Enix going to learn from that? And are we going to be basically getting more of the same, more like small pieces of content that don't really add up to much individually, but make the patch notes look much bigger? Or are we going to be getting less and more concise things that are much longer and more interesting? So 5.1 has a lot of content. We can't really say anything other than that. We're getting a new frontline, so that's PvP covered. We're getting like balance changes, lots of PvE stuff. We're getting a new dungeon, which is trust available. We're getting Nier Automata style alliance raid, which everyone is very excited for, and the first part of the Ishgard restoration project. So then you've got the other people in the game sort of covered with the crafting and gathering, and that looks really great on paper. But you also have things like the Blue Mage inclusion, just the level cap increase to level 60, and the Blue Mage log, which is essentially a challenge log with, different things to do, but also additionally some Masked Carnival stuff. So presumably there's lots of new abilities to learn from dungeons, but really, is Blue Mage bringing to the table enough to really, for that much time to be invested in it? It must take quite a lot of development time to create that sort of content, and I'm really curious to see what they would do if they didn't have Blue Mage in the game in its current limited job form. Would they use certain assets differently? Would there be something else to fill that gap? There's a lot of what ifs, and I think in many ways Blue Mage can be compared to Hildebrand quite closely in terms of that content. Now, we're still yet to see a Hildebrand chapter in Shadowbringers, which is scheduled for some time after 5.1, so like probably the patch afterwards, and it'll be interesting to see how long that quest line is. I'm not expecting every patch to have this amazing trial or process behind it, but as a whole I think we need more quality put into those individual pieces. Otherwise, I'm not really sure that they really add anything to the game in each of those patches other than just another section of patch notes to read. I mean, you could completely disagree with me on this, but I think that variety is great. quantity is brilliant, but individually I want the storylines and things that we immerse ourselves into to be to the same quality as they always have been or higher. Shadowbringers so far, I mean, we haven't had a proper decent patch yet with, new storyline. This is going to be the first one, 5.1. It's going to be really interesting to see how they can top what they've just done. Shadowbringers as a whole, as an expansion launch for 5.0 series, was absolutely fantastic. That goes without saying. The storyline, the dungeons, the music, oh my goodness, the music. Everything about it so far has been incredible. Like, it's been a step above Stormblood. That's not just a rose-tinted glasses of me hating on the previous expansion. I feel that it is a vast improvement, both technically, both artistically, visually. Every other part of the game is just pristine. So I'm interested to see what we're going to get in each of these patches, how big each of these components are, how much of an MSQ storyline is going to be in this one, considering we have the Nier Automata Alliance raid, how much of that time is going to be split between different parts of the patch. Usually when a patch comes out, I mean, I'm a content creator, so a lot of my time is basically doing all of that stuff as soon as I can. That's not to say that I rush through the content. I don't. I'm always the last out of my friends to actually complete everything. But I do find that a lot of the people I do play with do actually rush through a lot of that stuff to unlock the various bits from a patch. And then once they've unlocked it, they do it once and that's it. So everything is pretty much done on day one. So they'll complete the Alliance raid, they'll do the new dungeon, they'll do the new frontline, and they'll do the new storyline. And then by the time it's 4 p.m, they'll be asking, well, what's next? I'm going to basically not renew my subscription until the next part of the actual raid, the 8-man raid tier, comes out. And a lot of people are actually going to be like that. That's not a bad way to play the game, but then the argument could be made that the limitations per patch, but the increase of quality in those limitations. So say for instance we just had 4 major things, or even 3 major things as opposed to like 7 or 8, and the time that it takes to put into those is roughly the same, but there's more, not necessarily stretched out storylines, but there's just more quality put into that, more development time. Maybe people would savor that even if it isn't longer, and spend less time wanting to complete everything within the day. Maybe limitations do actually breed better enjoyability of an experience. But on the flip side, the variety that the patches that Final Fantasy XIV provides in comparison to the other MMORPGs on the marketplace is just incredible, and I don't really want that element to change. It's a double-edged sword when it comes to creating content, I would imagine, and I wouldn't like to be the sort of person that sits in a boardroom and decides what's going into each patch, because you're going to irritate somebody with whatever you do, especially when it comes to the Blue Mage question in general. I think a lot of people are waiting to see what's going to happen with Blue Mage at the end. What are they going to do to make Blue Mage entertaining and replayable? I don't think Blue Mage Log is really going to provide that sort of environment, and there needs to be something more than just Mass Carnival to really provide the sort of content that people want from a class that they've been wanting to play ever since they first saw a Blue Mage in the single-player RPG Final Fantasies, or indeed in Final Fantasy XI, where that version of Blue Mage is completely usable in pretty much every scenario. So really, my question to you is, do you find that you would want less items in a patch, but with more quality and more time put into those elements? Or would you prefer there to be like 8 to 12 different things, but them to take up less time individually? I think a lot of the answers to that is going to be based on how much time you have to play the game, but I could be entirely wrong. Of course, let me know below, and I will be using that information probably in the next tea time to sort of talk about this. I value your feedback, and I look forward to reading it as usual, and I'll see you all next time.